Well, this evening we're joined by Ross Boyask, director, writer, editor of I Am Vengeance, Retaliation. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming here and letting us watch your fantastic film, which we've just seen on the big screen. I know you haven't seen it for a while. Did it stand up good?
It's funny what you say, but yeah, I haven't watched it probably in over a year. Actually, I tell a lie, I probably watched it when it came out on Netflix. I really like how it looks on the big screen. It's a testament to, well, the crew and cast, I think, overall. Simon Rowling as the DOP and Paul Burns as the production designer. I think it looks really good on the big screen.
So, it did look great.
Thank you.
It did look great. So, although it's Stu Bennett and it's number 2 in a series, a trilogy potentially, it's a team film. It's a team film. Is that something that means something to you? Have you got like team films that have inspired you in the past?
Yeah, it's really interesting because one of the remits when we were making the sequel, because like you say, it is a sequel, you don't need to have seen the first Vengeance film, but it is a follow-up, was we wanted to make it different from the first movie, partly with the aim of it's a different type of action movie. The first movie is very much, dare I say, point blank, get Carter, that kind of man on a mission film. And we really wanted to go bigger and better, if I can use that phrase, as an action movie. So that does entail something like bringing in a team. It gave us more characters for Stu to bounce off as gold as well. We really liked that idea. One of the things I like most about the first movie, in fact, is how he bounces off certain individuals that cross his path. So the idea of having Lynch and Shapiro, for example, who are kind of like a double act in their own right, and having them with such a stern one-man killing machine, the idea was to kind of soften him somewhat. And I think that works really well. So, yes, you're right. A lot of it is Stu and Vinnie, Gold and Teague, and their past, their relationship.
Yes.
But we thought it was really important to kind of have Gold bounce off allies as well, to kind of bring out something of the lighter side.
Interesting, thank you. It's interesting you use the word stern. Does he smile ever?
Totally.
All the time, probably.
Stu is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. And as I understand it, and I've met a few professional wrestlers now, a lot of them are, they do the big WWE, I don't want to say aggressive is probably the wrong word, but very sort of posturing and, bullying sometimes, and bigger than life personalities. Yes. But from what I've understood, and certainly from the people I've met, humble, modest, to a point where you just wouldn't believe that. Very human. Yes. And a lot of professional wrestlers, most in fact, have travelled the world. Yes. So they've met people from all walks of life, which I personally find very interesting. I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about that, given their personas. Yes. Yes. So yes, Stu, as a human, very warm, very supportive, very funny. Great. And able to take a joke as well.
Easy to work with by the sound of it.
Super easy.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So, why Vinnie Jones? I mean, besides the obvious.
He was kind of the casting coup of the sequel, to be fair. John Adams and Diane Shorthouse, the producers, and I were very much along the lines of whoever plays Teague has to be able to stand up to Stu. Physically is one thing, but also in terms of charisma and being a villain that is, well, maybe even an anti-villain to some people, but a larger-than-life movie character who can fill the screen just as much as someone like Stu can. And the more we thought about it, Vinnie, with the huge amount of experience that he has in TV and films, had so much to bring to the character. He had great ideas about dialogue and the action. He was really, super willing. I think some people watch a film like I Am Vengeance, Retaliation and think they had Vinnie Jones for 2 days. I think a lot of people say that. We had him for 3 weeks, and he really got stuck in and got really involved, and he really delivered on screen. So, I mean, that's kind of the end result in many ways. When John, Diane and I were talking about this, we had discussions with Stu, we had discussions with, not that this is the most important part, but Stu's agent, who is also Vinnie's agent. Yes, that relationship was born. And it really bore out, I think. Before the shoot, I had a very long conversation with Vinnie on the phone. He had very specific ideas, which was great, and we went back and forth. And he really brought that when we were filming. So it was fascinating to watch him work.
Sounds great. Sounds like you had a good cast and crew.
Yeah, it was
you
really
touched
good.
upon it, and it does sound like it was good.
Yeah.
I'm going to potentially put my foot on it here. Did I see a big nod a little bit of a homage to Luc Besson's Leon in there?
Probably more than one, actually.
Just more than one. But the coming out with the mask on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's a couple of other moments as well. Even in the look of the team, kind of.
Yes.
There was there's an aspect.
So I take it you're a big fan.
Yes, very much of Leon and Le Film Nikita.
Yes.
And some of his other work, in fact. But those two are very strong in my mind.
Okay, so if I can go back in history a bit, what brought this incredible passion for movies?
How long have you got? When I was 3 years old, I'm in my 40s, kids. When I was 3 years old, all I wanted to do was draw comics. Again and again and again. At school, I just drew comics in the margins. I drew Wolverine and Spider-Man and Batman and Superman. And this was way before I understood different companies like Marvel and DC. I just loved the characters. And I loved the storytelling. And then when I was 11 years old, I saw 3 movies in one day that completely changed my life. And when you ask filmmakers, perhaps of a certain age, what were the films that made you want to make films, you tend to get things like Jaws, The Godfather, Goodfellas, Indiana Jones, Star Wars. For me, it was, in this order, Revenge of the Ninja, Commando, and American Ninja, all in the same day. In 1985.
You must have been tired at the end.
No, I wanted to watch them all again. We were way too young to watch these movies. These were all 18 rated movies in the UK. We were 11. I had a very understanding mother. And those movies, it's really easy to look in hindsight now and go, ninjas are like superheroes. Schwarzenegger in Commando is a cartoon in the best way. They're very straightforward stories of like good versus evil. The action is very graphic and sort of dynamic. And I still think it holds up to this day in all of those movies.
Yes, it does.
So those movies, when I saw those films, my 11-year-old mind went, how do I do that? I didn't know how you start.
No.
But those films, and they started me off on, if you like, martial arts movies
Yes,
and action movies and so forth.
And the classic fight with Bill Duke.
The classic.
Fight with Bill Duke.
Well, yes, yeah, well, absolutely, in Commando, yes.
With the
absolutely.
James Horner music.
Yes, the James Horner score is still
It's
incredible. And the fact that it was improvised is it's incredible to this day.
Super, yeah.
So, you know, I love Commando for every flaw and every moment and every frame and every good bit.
Yeah.
It all makes it a better movie to me. And yeah, so those films are kind of a direct influence and many like them. And you can probably see that in the films.
Yes, that's great. And I know you've got a dog called Rambo.
I do. Well, we do, yes.
So I'm going to absolutely make a big guess. Go completely out and say you love First Blood.
Yes, very much. And in fact, it's funny because First Blood, I love Stallone films around. I love Nighthawks. Nighthawks doesn't get enough discussion. Nighthawks is amazing. First Blood is interesting, particularly because it's more of a thriller than I think people remember. I think everyone thinks about Rambo First Blood Part 2, which is extraordinary as well, and it's an amazing counterpoint to Commando in the same year, I think. Like it's like the serious version, if you like, if I've got to label it. So I think a lot of people think about those movies, whereas the first film is actually more of a manhunt thriller in the woods. And Brian Dennehy is amazing in it.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean they all are. They're all David Caruso, and there's action in it. But it's not one of those high-octane action films that came later. No. So yes, it's funny, but the dog was always going to be called Rambo. Always.
I'm sorry, I'm looking aside because the dog's just here in the room with us. It's a beautiful dog.
I love him and I love the woman holding him. Not afraid to say.
So big influences there. Any other influences that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of filmmaking, and without getting too esoteric, Walter Hill is a huge influence, massive influence. Trespass, Hard Times, hundreds of... even Bullet to the Head, which I love, the Stallone movie he did. I love that movie. I'm not a fan of every movie, but most of Southern Comfort, absolutely incredible. Johnny Handsome, big fan. John Frankenheimer, I'm a massive fan of as well. Massive.
Worked with the great Burt Lancaster.
Yes, absolutely. The Train.
The Train.
Yes.
Oh,
and so many movies.
Stunning.
Ronin is an obvious one.
Yes.
But he was what you would almost call a journeyman director. He didn't just do action, but he staged action brilliantly. John Woo is an obvious one as well, for Hard Boiled and The Killer and so many other movies. And I tend to... and I mustn't forget Sam Peckinpah.
No.
Sam Peckinpah, who in many ways to me was like the predecessor of someone like Walter Hill. Not that they were that far apart. But again, Wild Bunch, extraordinary. I love the Killer Elite, which is James Caan versus ninjas. If people haven't seen that, that's amazing.
I have seen it.
Yeah, so I love those movies.
Yeah.
And they've kind of imprinted on me, and I love the stories of those people, those men directing.
Yes.
And I would be super remiss if I didn't mention Catherine Bigelow. Point Break and Near Dark and Blue Steel, and obviously her more recent films. But those few first movies were her playing boys at their own game and beating the hell out of them.
So, an incredible knowledge of film here is obvious. And I wouldn't be wrong, I think, in saying you may have a great collection of these films. Am I right?
Well, when people come to the flat, there are two walls. There are two walls. There's many walls. There are two walls, one of DVDs and one of Blu-rays. It's thousands. I don't know the number anymore. It's thousands, and I shouldn't be embarrassed. I'm very proud.
Don't be embarrassed.
I'm very proud. And yes, there's a significant collection.
So if you was to build your new house, which you're clearly going to need very soon, out of your DVD collection, what would be on the walls of your dojo?
I mean, would I put films in the dojo? Keep the dojo pure.
You would keep it pure?
Yeah.
You purist, you.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think if you're training,
That's fine, it's a good
training real life, I think. It's a great question, though. If you're talking about martial arts movies, though.
Yes, of course. Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon is unquestionable. I love Project A, the Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung Yuen Bu joint, hugely. Now I'm going black. Roadhouse, which I know isn't what you would call a conventional martial arts movie, but to me it's a Western martial arts movie for sure. The works of Isaac Florentine and Jesse Johnson loom large in my mind, of course. There are so many. I don't even.
No, that's fine. I'll put you on the spot.
Revenge for Ninja, American Ninja.
And you answered it fantastically.
Yeah. A lot of canon films, I should say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, the style of your shooting now, specifically on the film we've just seen, The Vengeance, Retaliation. I don't know the technical terms for this, but it feels very, as someone who was watching films in the 70s, the martial arts films, it feels kind of Hong Kong standoff shooting at times. Rather than I don't mean this as a disrespect, more of like a Jason Bourne, super in close, fast cuts, we haven't got a clue where anybody is. Is that highly intentional on your part, the cinematographer's part? How does that come out?
So, for me, and some similar-minded people, Paul Greengrass kind of ruined action films for 10 years. Sorry. I love the first Bourne Identity, but that was Doug Liman. And we all know that the fight between Joey Answer and Matt Damon in Bourne Ultimatum is fantastic, because you could see what was happening in that one, as opposed to a lot of the other fights. I think that there is an argument for close-up camera work in fights. There are moments of drama, there are moments of chaos that absolutely require it. But I also can't help but think, if you have people who can actually perform, particularly the cast in Vengeance Retaliation, people like Katrina Durden, Phoebe Robinson-Galvin, Stu, of course, and Jean-Paul Lee. There were so many.
Katrina was great. She was great.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, they're putting great work.
Yeah.
And if you've got people like Tim Mann doing the choreography and Dan Stars and Dominic Kinnaird showing us, doing the stunts and making sure everyone's safe, why would you not show that? That's the bit I don't... When you have Jeff Imada choreographing those Bourne films, why would you not show his work? He did They Live, which is still one of the best fights of all time.
Love God.
Right, so I don't... To me, it's that person can't fight.
No.
It's really simple.
I know.
You think you've seen
It's
a
the
fight
first thing
scene.
you think.
Yeah.
You should see that.
Well, I think if you're critically thinking, you think it. Like, if you watch a movie, there are people who watch those movies and go, that was a great fight. I was like, you didn't see a fight.
No.
You didn't. Sorry, that's an opinion. And look, there are other franchises I'm not so hot on too. I will always say, though, if an action franchise is successful, I'm very happy.
So
no matter what I think.
You like John Wick?
Do you really want that conversation?
No, we don't.
I will say about John Wick, the third one, I love the fight choreography because I didn't on the first two.
Yes.
And I love Mark Dacascos.
Yes.
I'm such a huge Mark Dacascos fan,
Okay.
and I thought he shined
Yes.
in the third one.
Yes.
I have significant issues with those films.
So, I know you're good friends with Brian Larkin,
I am.
who is here at the festival as we speak. When did this friendship start?
Oh wow, that's a question. Have you asked him about me?
I haven't asked him this question.
Interesting. Get him back in it. So, again, depending on how long you have, Brian Larkin is one of the most talented, enthusiastic, passionate and driven men I've ever met in my life. It's a start. And I think we're brothers to some degree, a significant degree. I met him when we were casting the first Vengeance film. I Am Vengeance or Vengeance, depending on where you live. And I met him at an interesting time because we were casting the movie. We had a number of submissions. And we already had, obviously we had Stu, who was wonderful, and Gary Daniels, who was wonderful to work with as well, and I was a big fan for a long time of his work. Brian's an interesting one because I watched not long before casting London Has Fallen, the sequel to Olympus Has Fallen, and I really liked him in that movie. I didn't know him at that point. I really liked this SAS guy who was helping Gerard Butler. Great, really enjoyed that aspect, the way they bantered and all of that stuff. Really great. And when we got the submissions, it like the castings in, and I saw it was Brian, and then I looked at his IMDb, as any good casting person should do. He's the guy from London Has Fallen. What the expletive deleted? Wow, amazing. And then I looked further down on his cast, and he was in a movie, a horror movie that I loved, called Let Us Pray. And I hadn't put the two, I just hadn't connected the two, because it was a few years ago. And in London Has Fallen, you see this much of him. Not, you know. So I was like, holy crap, this guy's been in at least 2 movies that I love. He came in, he was a pleasure to meet, and audition and so forth. Our working relationship on Vengeance was fantastic. Really, I mean, everyone was great, but we really got on. And there's lots of ideas and lots of communication, which is great. And in fact, I shared a very personal story with him. On his first day of filming, I shared quite a personal story with him and Fleur Keith, who was one of the bad guys with him. And I don't know why, that just somehow connected us. It was a really nice moment. And then we went on to film. So there's something interesting about that, I think. And in many ways, our friendship has kind of blossomed from there. He's come to work with me again on a short horror film that we made last year called Life Force. Currently in post-production, he was brilliant in that. And I was really honoured when he asked me to work on Dead End 3, Dead End Dead Man Walking, as a director, because he's created such an expansive universe with these short films. These are very ambitious short films. And one of the things I loved about working on Dead End 3 was it wasn't an action movie. There's action in it. It's a thriller. It's an espionage thriller. But as a director, I'm always looking to, spread my wings. We know I can do action without making a point of it. We know I can do action. To me, it was much more about the relationships and the characters and the narrative and the way that unfolded. That was fascinating to me. And I'm so proud of that film. I'm really excited to see it again at the festival. I'm really. I don't say this very often. I'm very proud of the work that we did on that film.
It looks great, by the way.
Thank you, and I really hope we can do the next one together. I really feel privileged to feel part of that world.
And hopefully that becomes a feature soon.
I best talk about that,
That's
and
great.
I think it really deserves it.
It's an obvious one, isn't it?
I hope so.
It's so obvious, You're known as a genre filmmaker. If you were to step outside of the genre that you're known for, what would you do? Comedy, romance?
Well, it's funny you mention that. I want to make the step into horror, this is why I've done this short film with Brian. It's kind of surreal horror, so I'm interested in exploring that kind of side of things. Funnily enough, I do have 2 romantic comedies.
That wasn't told to me before, and that's.
I do have 2 romantic comedies that I'm quite keen to do, and as far as I know, they haven't been done before, in terms of the idea. So I'm quite interested to explore those. I do think it'll be a little bit of time before I'm asked, Ross, by someone who wants to finance a movie, would you like to do a romantic comedy? If I had the opportunity, there are 2. And I've really become drawn recently to just almost like straight thrillers. Those kind of relationship thrillers from the 90s. I've become slightly obsessed with watching as many of those as possible. Don't really know why, I can't explain it. But I'm really getting something from them.
Great. So, you're obviously an avid watcher as well as an avid everything. I mean, you edit as well, your own films. Don't know how you get time for anything else. Do you get time for anything else? Have you got any hobbies other than movie related?
Wow, that is a good question. So, something I posted recently on social media was my dissatisfaction with myself. About a year ago, I got it into my mind, but I wanted to start painting lead miniatures again, like fantasy, that sort of thing. And because my wonderful other half is into Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, I actually acquired a bunch of the actual modelling kits for Lord of the Rings. And paints, bits and kits. We even went to Brighton to Games Workshop, which I love, bought a load of stuff. Haven't touched any of it. Haven't even spray painted it with primer. I haven't done anything yet.
Is that for obvious reasons?
Just it's been super busy, but there's also no excuse I should make the time. There's that. The other hobby that has become a real passion, primarily because of lockdown, is Lego. I will become a Lego brand ambassador. I would be very happy to. Mostly Star Wars related, because again, Jenny massively into Lego. Star Wars, sorry. And some other ones, like some Marvels and stuff. And I've really enjoyed that, and I actually find building Lego very therapeutic. For real. So that's been interesting.
Thank you for sharing that about the Lego. Incredible. So I know you've mentioned lots of films, probably from 70s onwards.
Yeah.
Are there any older films, maybe 40s and 50s films that you like or have been influential?
Very much. Double Indemnity is a classic, and there are many similar films around that time. Singing in the Rain is huge for me. Singing in the Rain. In fact, actually, Jenny and myself, when the cinemas opened up again after lockdown, the Prince Charles Cinema opened with Singing in the Rain, and we went straight there, and it was wonderful to see it on the big screen. So things like that anchors away, like classic musicals I'm a big fan of. Love, like I say, Double Indemnity. I like a lot of the hard-boiled, if you like, noirish genre, if I can say that, or subsection of films. Yeah, that's probably, I mean, there are others probably, but...
No favourite directors from that era?
Well, Billy Wilder, amazing. I should have mentioned also in influences, William Friedkin. Massive. French Connection. Absolutely. The Exorcist. But funny enough, that's the film that I'm not particularly bothered about.
Really?
Just for me, French Connection is massive. It's 50 years old.
Yes.
The French Connection is 50 years old.
Yes,
It doesn't make sense. It's fantastic. And also, the one that I love more than anything is Sorcerer. I'm a massive fan of Sorcerer, the film that Star Wars killed, as they call it, which is an extraordinary movie. So a lot of those kind of like, if you like, hard-bitten, tough, gritty movies.
Yeah.
Point Blank is a huge one for me by John Boorman.
Yeah, yes.
Huge. Get Carter. Huge.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ross. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us see a wonderful film, and we wish you every success with it, and we hope to see number 3.
It's sort of in the works.
In the works?
Fingers crossed, please, everyone. Fingers
Great.
crossed, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.